Thank you all very much. Thank you all. I honestly am overflowing with gratitude for each and every one of you who has decided in our robbery to come and hear a little bit from me, and I'm going to try to truncate my comments so that I can answer as many questions as I possibly can during the time that we got here together. But at first, I've got to do a couple of appreciations. First, I want to thank the joint heads, the two heads of this house of worship that we are in today, Pastor Johnson and Pastor Jones, who are over here in the corner. We all give it up to them opening up this house. Now, because my aunt is married to one of them, I got to give it up to my Aunt Barbara Jones, who is also here, but she's also here with a number of my relatives, my grandmother, Elizabeth Gillum, my Aunt Cynthia, my Aunt Patricia, my Uncle Vincent, and y'all are probably like, do you travel everywhere with aunties and uncles? I don't, but they all live here in Jacksonville, and so if I'm trying to get all of y'all to vote for me, at the very least you ought to know that my family is also behind me. So will you give it up for my cousins and aunts, uncles, and my wife? I want to give a special thanks, obviously, to Donna Deegan, who was kind enough to bring some greetings today. But I also want you to know that Donna has been toting us around this city since 7 o'clock this morning. She had us in interview after interview after interview after interview. I think we may have gotten through 5 or 6 of them today. And I want to thank her for her friendship. This is a woman who is really putting it on the line. As she says, she for a long time has been Switzerland, friendly to all sides. And when she came out and supported me, not only did she come out and supported me, but she was courageous enough to draw some distinctions between me and some of my opponents. Now, I know a lot of us like to think that we can run these competitive races without ever having to point out what the differences are. And she did so eloquently and so powerfully and so publicly. And Donna, I want you to know that I'm eternally grateful for your friendship and for your having done that. I want to also acknowledge Tony Hill for his introduction as well. Senator Hill is a friend, is a mentor. When I was a student at Florida A&M University, traversing the highest of 7 hills, Tony Hill and Kendrick Meek and many other members were down at the Florida legislature, really socking into Jeb Bush, who was really socking into the rest of the state of Florida. And they stood up and they stood in the gap. In fact, they did better. They sat in on the governor's office. Some of you all may remember that history. And the governor came into his office and said, get those you-know-whats out of my office. And they overnighted in that office, and it sparked what will become the largest civil rights demonstration in Florida's history, known as the March on Tallahassee. And that's where I got to know them, and I have followed them ever since. So thank you for your leadership. Finally, I want to acknowledge Representative Mia Jones. Well, Mia, you're going for another title now. Should I claim your new title, Madam Tax Collector? Future Tax Collector of Duval County, if we know where this is supposed to be. Mia is a real friend. She is also a fellow Rattler and has always served in every position that she has held with such a high level of distinction, a level of intelligence, and the ability to really break through and introduce the voices of everyday people. She's been a sister friend, a mentor, and a colleague in this struggle, and I'm thankful to have your support. One of my earliest endorsers in this race for governor, and I appreciate her doing it. I also want to thank James Morton and the Duval County Black Caucus. Just last week, the Black Caucus of the state of Florida endorsed my candidacy, and that was after having gone through a very strenuous process, interviewing all the candidates who were competing for governor, and asking us what we were going to do to address the issues that were foremost in the minds of that constituency. And I was proud, exceedingly proud, to walk away with that endorsement. And now they're putting boots on the ground to help us out. We also got another pretty important endorsement last week. Not more important caucus, of course.
That's right.
But Tom Steyer of Next Gen, the founder, decided that he and Next Gen would endorse my candidacy for governor, and with that endorsement came $1 million contribution, and God knows we need it. As you all heard from Donna and from others, I am the only non-millionaire, non-billionaire running for governor on the Democratic side, and I say that with a little tongue-in-cheek because I know my wife wishes that could be different, but it isn't. She's just going to have to love me as I am. But I want you to know that I'm not afraid of that. I think it's an unfortunate footnote that it seems in today's politics that you either got to be famous or from a famous family or be able to write your own check.
That's right.
Service to the people of this state. I apologize. I may have turned this off. 1, 2, 3. There it is. I'll take this one. That you either have to be able to stroke your own check for governor or be from a famous lineage. And in my opinion, I believe everyday people who experience what it means to have to struggle from time to time, who experience what it means to have to get up every day and go out and to fight to keep a roof over your head and food on your and your children's backs and a roof to cover and keep you and your family safe. That's the everyday lived experience of a lot of people in this state. In fact, y'all, 46% of the people in the state of Florida say that they cannot make ends meet at the end of the month. Almost half the people in the state of Florida are working, many of them harder than ever, and still can't pull down a wage where they can take care of themselves and their families. Well, I believe we can have a different kind of state than that. I grew up understanding very well what it meant, watching my mother and father trade between which bills they could pay before something got cut off. We had a little slight stint here in Jacksonville growing up, but by and large, I was born and raised in Miami-Dade, Florida. I finished high school in Gainesville, Florida, just down the road, and my siblings from time to time and myself lived here in Jacksonville for a small period of time. So we like to say that we're from all over the state of Florida. And I have to tell you, when running for governor, it didn't hurt to be from all over the state of Florida. The only problem is everybody asks you what high school you grew up or graduated from. And when I say Gainesville, then it's like, nah, you ain't from Miami. You're not from Duval County. Duval. But the truth is I have had the experience of what it means to move around this state and to talk to the people in this state, but to also walk my own walk. While I'm the mayor of Tallahassee, and I'm extremely proud of what we've been able to do in Tallahassee, I am right now the mayor of the city that is the fastest growing economy in the state of Florida per capita, 17th fastest growing in the country per capita. My city right now is experiencing a crime rate that is at a 5-year low. And we didn't do that by arresting more people, putting them in jail, and throwing away the key. We did that by doing community policing practices, by putting law enforcement officers in neighborhoods where they weren't only there when they were responding to some trouble. They were there getting to know the neighborhood. The neighbors knew them, the elders knew them, the grandmothers who sat on the front porch knew them. But we did a couple of other things. We began a program that did adult and youth civil citations. So instead of locking up our young people for a mistake, we allowed them to get a civil citation and escape without earning a record. That way when they go to apply for a job, they can do so and be pretty well guaranteed that they would be measured on their merit. But we went further than that. I was proud to start a program, a community justice program, where young people, instead of going before a judge and a court of law and being told that they have committed some crime against the inanimate state of Florida, they go before community justice panels. Ms. Jackson, Ms. Jefferson, the victim, maybe the victim's family, and they get to hear how their actions impacted us, the community. And you want to know what we've learned? By comparison to the recidivism rate, which for those of you who don't know, which is the reoffend rate, at 6 months in this state for that same cast of character, nonviolent first-time offender, at 6 months, 40% of them have gone on to reoffend. And our program, at 6 months after they completed it, over 90% of them have not reoffended. That's not justice. That's not justice. And we've got to make sure that we give folks another opportunity, another chance, especially our young people, because we don't want them to find themselves in a criminal justice system that is unforgiving, that they can't extract themselves from, that their futures are over because they made a mistake. And unfortunately, that already exists too much here in the state of Florida, where 1.7 million people don't have their rights to vote.
Yeah.
Well, we can change that, y'all.
Yes, we
Because
can.
Amendment 4 will be on the November ballot, and if we approve it, we will automatically restore rights for nearly 1 million people. But my work on criminal justice didn't end there. I also am proud to say, as the mayor of Florida's capital city, we banned the box. We don't ask about criminal background history when you apply for a job. We don't ask about it. And yes, answering yes is a disqualifier for the position. If it is not, we're going to measure you on your merit. Can you do the job? Will you make a good employee? Will you contribute to this organization? And if the answer is yes, then welcome aboard. And I want to tell you a little secret. We learned that those are some of the hardest working people we have within our government. Why? Because they know what it means to be without. They now understand what it means to be able to work an honorable job and earn an honorable wage and take home an honest living that allows you the dignity of work, the dignity to earn, the dignity to be respected by your children and your relatives and your neighbors for getting on the right track. We can't say we want people to pull themselves up by the bootstrap, y'all, and then do everything we need to do to prevent them from doing that. That's a no more. And under Governor Gillum, we will be a forgiving state. If you commit a crime, you do the time. But once you are back out into society, we're going to make sure you can make a way for yourself and for your families so you don't find yourself back into a cycle of criminality. But y'all, before we get there, we want to make sure that we disrupt this pipeline full set. And the way that we do that is making sure that every one of our kids gets an equal opportunity to learn. Which is why I've been such a fierce defender of the public education system. I put a proposal out that says we will pay teachers what they are worth for doing the most difficult job of existing society. These are teachers who, in my opinion, are doing some of the most difficult work out there. The making, the molding, the shaping, the inspiring, the cultivating of the minds of our most precious gifts, our children.
Thank you.
And as a father to 3, I want to make sure that when my kids show up, that they show up ready to learn. But I don't want them to be by themselves. I want the kids around them to be there, ready to learn. And in the state of Florida, today, 40% of our kids are showing up at kindergarten not ready to learn. Nearly that same percentage by the time they get to 3rd grade are not on grade level reading. We pay teachers the lowest starting salaries in the bottom 10% of all 50 states. We're number 40th.
Wow.
Guess what else? We're 40th at. We're 40th at quality. We're the 3rd largest state in all of America, and we're 40th at quality. Whereas governor of the state of Florida, the first thing we want to do is get rid of these high-stakes testing, which don't tell us what our kids know, they tell us how well they take the test. It's a bad measure, and researchers all over the country are coming to the same conclusion, that this is a bad measure. These high-stakes tests don't tell us what our kids know, but how well they take a test. The other thing we're going to do is reinfuse back into the public system trades. While college worked for me, for my older brothers, it was woodwork, shop, mechanical, electrical, technical.
Amen. All
of those programs where you can get a skill, take that skill, monetize it, get a job, and earn a good wage, and take care of yourself and your family.
That's right.
We got to go back to the basics. Back to the basics. And I know from personal experience, I'm not sure about you, when's the last time you tried to schedule a plumber or a roofer at your house? I had one, and they had to work around their schedule, and by the time they got there, they're less than an hour and walked away with $300 good. These are good wages. These are good jobs. And so why don't we treat them like they're throwaway jobs? They're not. They're good, skilled work that pay good money. Y'all, when I'm governor of the state of Florida, we will expand Medicaid for 700,000 of those medically needy people in this state. 700,000 of them. This governor had a chance to expand Medicaid, refused to expand Medicaid, and his refusal to do so cost us to have to leave $6 billion in the federal government. Never came down to Florida. All because we don't believe in Obamacare. this governor decided he didn't believe in Obama's stimulus money, and so when the president tried to send him $2.4 billion to build high-speed rail through the I-4 corridor, what did he say? Was I the only one that read the paper? He said no. He said no. Now we had a chance to build 21st century transportation, put people to work, and also building the future transportation system of this state, and we said no. Listen, y'all, we got to return to some basics, some commonsensical solutions. And I look forward to being the governor to help offer that. I want you to know this about me. I believe in standing up and fighting for what is worth fighting for. And I'll give you one example. The NRA sued me. They had me in court for 2 years. All because I refused to repeal an ordinance in my city which simply said you cannot shoot guns in a city park.
Yeah.
You can't shoot guns in parks where kids play and families picnic. And that was so radical a notion. So radical a notion that they took me through court for 2 years. I had to find my own legal counsel because the law said that I could not be represented by my city's attorney, even though these were actions that I took in my capacity as an elected official. I was responsible for paying a fee of $10,000. I was responsible for reimbursing the attorney's fees of the opposing party up to $100,000 if they would have won, and subject to removal from office at the discretion of the governor. That's the law in the state of Florida. And now they're talking about arming teachers. Now, if you want to arm teachers with a good wage and supplies and training and support, then I'm with you. But if you're not, then let me be clear. I believe that it is basic and common for anybody who wants to carry the power of God on their waist belt to at least have a background check.
That's right.
I don't think it's too much or too radical to say that. I believe that domestic violence abusers should not have access to weapons where they can snuff out the lives of their loved ones. It shouldn't be too much to ask for that. I believe that if you want a weapon that can fire off 60 bullets in less than 60 seconds, you should join the military. That is a weapon of war, and it doesn't belong on our city streets. Does not belong on our city streets. But y'all, in order for us to make this kind of change, we've got to get involved in the arena. We have to run these races like our lives depend on it, because for too many of us, our lives do depend on it.
Yes, they do.
Our lives do depend on having a governor who knows what it means not to just survive in the state of Florida, but what it means to thrive in this state. I am the only non-millionaire running, but what's important about that is I understand that experience of what it means to try to thrive through this state, not because somebody wrote it down for me, or because a pollster told me it's the right thing to say, or because I lifted my finger to the wind to see which way it was blowing. I know it because I've lived it.
Amen.
And I believe that we deserve a seat at the table too. In fact, if we don't, we got to build our own table. So I'll bring this thing to a close and take some questions. What I want you to know is that this win is eminently possible. It is eminently possible. I am in a 5-way Democratic primary. And in the state of Florida, we don't have runoffs, which means the person who wins could theoretically win with about 20% of the vote plus one. A 5-way race, y'all do the math, right? I want you to know that I believe that there are enough of us out there, common, decent thinking and feeling people, who are prepared to get out there and to vote our values, to give voters a reason to get out and vote for something and not just against. Look, I'm no fan of Donald Trump. In fact, I think he is a danger to himself and the whole world. But we're not going to win this race running for governor of Florida talking about Donald Trump.
Right.
He will take it. He talks enough. Right? He tweets enough, that's for sure. But the voters who we need to turn out, they've been through worse. They feel like they get the short end of the stick every time. And many of them have given up about this process. They don't believe it works for them anymore. And so for them, we've got to give them a reason to go out and vote. We've got to talk to them about how we're going to transform this education system in this state so that regardless of where you come from, what your mother or your father did for a profession, what side of the tracks you grew up on, that every kid ought to have an equal opportunity to learn. We ought to make that promise to them. We ought to talk to them about not only Medicaid expansion, but Medicare for all. Because nobody ought to go without health care. Not in civilized society, they shouldn't. And you got people who are literally terrified of getting sick in this state. Yeah. Working people. Yeah. Because if they get sick, they can't go to work. And if they can't go to work, they can't earn a wage. And if they cannot earn a wage, then they cannot pay their bills. And when they can't pay their bills, their lights get turned off. Somebody doesn't eat, medication doesn't get, prescriptions don't get filled. So this is real. And we've got to treat it like it's real. This is not a sport. I want to win this race for governor not because my name is on the ballot. I want to win because I know who loses when we lose these elections. It's the kids who are being told they attend failure factories. The teachers who are underpaid and are moonlighting as retail workers because they can't earn enough to take care of their family. It's the people who are spending 60 and 70% of their take-home income in housing because we have an affordable housing crisis in the state of Florida. It's the kids who are turning to violence as a way out because they have no hope.
That's right.
Because they don't fear death.
Right.
Because on the other side, they don't see there's anything worth living for. That's who loses when we lose these elections. So we've got to be nakedly clear about the job that we've got to do this August 28th as we march to the polls and we try to reclaim our proper place at the table. I was always told that if you are not at the table, it means you are likely on the menu. With Duval County, it's time for us to get off the menu.
That's right.
It's time for us to build a table that has enough seats for all of us, because when I win this race for governor, we all going to Tallahassee. We're all going to Tallahassee. If we don't go physically, our hopes, our ambitions, our fears for the future of this state, that's what's going to Tallahassee, because we need a governor who understands that and will start to legislate in a way that creates lift for everybody. Not just somebody, but everybody. I believe it to my core that we can get this job done, but it's not enough for me to believe it. It's not enough for me to believe it. Y'all have to believe it. Not only do you have to believe it, but we got to get out there and infect 5 more people, as the senator said, so that they didn't believe it. And that they didn't show up and that they voted this primary election. The stakes are far too high. The stakes are way too high for us to play with this thing. I believe that when we make it through the Democratic primary, I present the best opportunity for Democrats to win the governor's race. And I believe that our win will have an impact all the way down the ballot. I actually believe it will have impact up the ballot for Senator Nelson, who we need to make sure goes back to Washington to block the bill that So in order for us to do this thing, I need you to Facebook and tweet about it and Snapchat if you're allowed to be on Snapchat. I'm not, so I'm not sure who else is paying it. Whatever form of communication you choose to get our name out there, repost our videos, our content, talk to voters. We don't have to be the wealthiest candidate in the race, but if you don't have the millions or the thousands or the hundreds, do like my mother does. She is on a $20 a month rotational gift into the campaign. It comes out auto-deduct. And some months she reduces it to $5 because she bought a little extra something else. I got to tell you, she calls every month when it's taken out. The staff, they say, did y'all get the package? And I'm like, Mom, we got the package. My staff was confused at first as to what the package was. I had to explain that it's black lady speak for money. She can't say money over the phone. Did you get the package? But whatever that gift looks like, whatever you have to give, that's what's going to fuel this campaign forward. But ultimately, y'all, money doesn't vote, people do. So if we show up and we vote, and you need look no further than the congressional race in New York. $300,000 for one senator now to $3 million. So listen, y'all, with your help, we're going to get this thing done. And when we get it done, man, I'm so excited about the kind of change that we're going to create for this state. The point is not lost on me. The kind of impact that we can have by winning this race. And when we win, I need y'all to send folks like Tracy Paulson to the Florida legislature so that she can represent on our behalf. Judge, we need you to get elected. Judge Sandler, who is here and is running for office. We need those of you who are out there trying to make change at every single level, because Tallahassee can't do it alone. And when you send me to Tallahassee, I can't do it alone. But together we can make this state one in which we create lift, upward mobility, and opportunities for everybody, not just the well-heeled and the well-connected. I believe it, y'all, because I've lived it. Now let's go out there and make sure some other people can live it as well. God bless you. I look forward to thank you very much. I think we're open now to take some questions. So we've got a microphone right here. Oh, you have the first question. I'm sorry.
Gillum?
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for coming to Jacksonville. You answered a lot of questions that I had when I first came in the room. But I want to know, with the pain points of the state of Florida, what would be the top 2 things that you would tackle once you got into office?
Yeah, thank you. And there are so many. And the reason why there are so many is because Republicans have been in control of this state for 20 years. And they messed up a lot. You can begin by the fact that they didn't provide pay raises for their employees for about 6 years. And when they ultimately got around to it, it was more like a little bit of a take back, because they added a bunch of fees and other contributions that those employees would have to make. Anyway, a lot of work to do, but let me point out 2 very important things. The first thing is that Governor Rick Scott believes that he has the power to appoint the next 3 Supreme Court justices to the Florida Supreme Court, even though they both go out of office, the 3 justices and him retire on the same day. Now, they wouldn't let Obama appoint a justice a year out from the election. But this governor says that he will be able to make those appointments before he heads out of office on noon on Inauguration Day. So the first thing we're going to do is that when we win this race in November, we're going to file a declaratory judgment in the court to make sure that those judges decide that we, the new governor, will be the one to make those next 3 Supreme Court justices. That's critical. That is critical, because that's not 4 years of a governor. We're talking about 40 years. We're talking about 30 years on a court, right? And so that is important. And then, as I said before, education and the educational overhaul that we're going to have to undertake. And for me, if I wasn't clear enough on that, that begins by making sure that we get affordable access to early childhood education for every child in this state, 0 to 5. Over 90% of brain development over the course of human life takes place between the ages of 0 and 5. And the unfortunate truth is if our kids start behind, they almost always stay behind. So we got to make sure that they start on time, ready to learn when they enter kindergarten. We then have to get rid of this testing regime where we penalize teachers based off their pay, based off the grade of a student, and the performance of the test. We have to begin to weed that process out. And by the way, y'all, it is very clear to most onlookers to the state of Florida that those tests are only designed to build the for-profit testing industry.
Yes.
They're not about kids.
Yes.
They're about how you put more contractors in here and sell us more testing instruments that then we get more business. That's why they keep changing their tests every other year. To buy new ones and prop up a new industry. And then we've got to do the difficult work of making sure we can bring the trades back into our school system. We've done this before. We have done it before. We had an educational system that had its faults, but was worlds better than what we're experiencing now. This testing regime that we've got is a no-go. And as governor, the first thing I've got to do is begin to dismantle what have been 20 years of the for-profitizing of the public education system, the high-stakes testing of those in the public system, the degrading through the grading scale here in the state of Florida's public education system, and the readiness to learn, which is really critical when it comes particularly to the the early childhood piece. So first, let's get our judges so that they decide the right way when it makes it to the Supreme Court, and then let's begin to dismantle this horrible system and replace it with one that works and serves kids. Not for-profit institutions, but our kids. And I think we can do that. I appreciate the question.
Good evening. My name is India Wells, and I'm also a native of Florida Agricultural Mechanical University. I graduated in 2011, and I graduated as an elementary education major, and so I came back to Jacksonville to teach in the Duval County Public School System, so I'm glad you're going on this platform. My question is, back when Bush implemented the No Child Left Behind Affordable Act, mandates every state has an assessment to measure those standards. I love the fact that the standardized testing is something that we're pulling away from. My question is, because working in a Title I school, which is my passion, is helping those children, those latchkey kids who come home to nobody at home, working 2 jobs, what programs or incentives could we actually implement that could actually, I know the money situation is going to be there, but like you said, we've done it before, and those funds wasn't allotted exactly to the right places to actually allow those teachers and representatives to do what they need to do to really benefit the low socioeconomic status. So, other than standardized testing, just abroad, maybe portfolios, or what can we use to measure those things?
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. I used to sit on an education foundation in Massachusetts, which has one of the best public education systems. Now, they complain that they're not everything they want to be, and I get it. They're in the pursuit of happiness and the pursuit of perfect, but they're worlds better than what we have. And they've got measures, and I think that they operate from a support-based frame, not a punitive frame to educating, but a support-based frame. They also operate through an equity lens, which is every kid doesn't get $1. Some kids need $1.50, some kids need 50 cents. And so how do we make sure that we ensure that the resources are there to move a child along in the educational experience, again, in a way that meets the child where they are and meets them at their needs. We also used to have evaluations all the time. In fact, when I was matriculating in the public system here in the state, we had tests practically every week, it felt, that measured our growth, what we were learning, where we were falling behind, what we were short. We had 9 weeks grades. We had semesterly grades. Then we had another 9 week, and then we had another semester, which would give us our annual. If you were passing muster, you got elevated to the next grade level. If you were not, you were retained and you were put on a corrective course so that you could be elevated to the next level. The other thing that we did is that we unleashed the power of teachers to do the job that they were hired to do. Yes. Not teach to a test, but to teach to inspire. Teach for kids to learn. We've got to have that kind of a system. We've got to have that kind of system again in this state of Florida. So the measure of a child's learning is not dependent on a high-stakes test. That is the worst measure of whether or not a child is learning. And so why won't we do the work of incorporating the kind of measures that, again, allow us to get an assessment of our kids, how they're learning, the techniques that best suit them, and ensuring then that you as a teaching professional, because that's what it is, even though they pay media wages, it's a teaching profession, we ought to allow you to do the job that you got into this field to do, which was to educate. And then we've got to unleash the curriculum so that we're not, again, teaching to the test, but we're creating the kind of curriculum that meets the needs of our kids based off their future trajectory, where they're trying to go. Our experience doesn't have to be centered on Florida alone. There are other states that are doing this better, and we've got to learn from them and incorporate what we can. Thank you for the question, and thank you for your service.
Hi, Mr. Gillum. My name is Trill.